It's June the 11th, 2024 at the Maseru Bridge crossing in Ladybrand. A taxi from Johannesburg pulls up at the long-distance drop-off point. Passengers step out, ready to cross into Lesotho. A white Isuzu bakkie arrives. Men jump out. They open fire. Two passengers, Moholi Mohapi, 31, and Raboni David Sefaka, 40, fall in pools of blood beside the taxi. The shooters flee across the border into Lesotho, thinking they're beyond reach. But 7 months later, international cooperation brings them back. This is the story of an execution at South Africa's border and the extradition that proved borders don't protect killers forever. This is Brick and Blood, South African Town Tales.
Morning at around 5 a.m., commuters at Maseru Bridge were dealt a shock as suspects started shooting at a taxi that had apparently been followed all the way from Johannesburg.
This incident took place at 5 a.m. Apparently, these people may have followed this taxi. As soon as it entered the rank, some people alighted from the bakkie and started shooting at one person who might have been their target, but also hit one of the guys who helped carry cargo for commuters. Police at the crime scene collected about 28 shells. It was people who alighted from the 4x4 bakkie. They shot at this passenger from Gauteng. It looks like they may have also come from Gauteng. I ran for cover as the guns went off. The Ladybrand police were able to intercept a suspected vehicle where two suspects fled on foot, and the driver of the vehicle is in police custody as further investigations continue.
The suspect has been brought to Ladybrand police station, and it is said that one firearm was found in that scene. I'm Rapelang Khatebe for SABC News, Ladybrand, Free State.
June the 11th, 2024, the Maseru Bridge port of entry sits on Ladybrand's edge, the gateway between South Africa and Lesotho. It's one of the busiest border crossings in the Free State. A constant flow of people, of goods, of vehicles moving between two countries, separated by a bridge over the Caledon River. The long-distance taxi drop-off point near the border post is designed for exactly this. Passengers arriving from Johannesburg, Bloemfontein, other South African cities, ready to cross into Lesotho. It's a liminal space, no longer quite South Africa, not yet Lesotho. A place where travelers carry luggage, say goodbyes, prepare for border formalities. On this June afternoon, a taxi arrives from Johannesburg. Among the passengers is Moholi Mohapi, known as Bohome. He's 31 years old, and Raboni David Sefaka, known as Serurubele, 40 years old. Two men that are making the journey that thousands make every week. They step out of the taxi, they gather their belongings. The border crossing is literally meters away. A white Isuzu bakkie pulls up. Men jump out, they have guns, they open fire on the passengers exiting the taxi. Moholo Mohapi falls. Raboni David Sefaka falls. Both lie in pools of blood beside the taxi that brought them from Johannesburg. The shooters jump back into the bakkie and flee. Border crossings are designed to control movement, to check who enters and exits countries, to prevent smuggling, to maintain sovereignty. But the architecture of border infrastructure creates vulnerability. The drop-off point sits in an open space where vehicles come and go constantly. Security focuses on the crossing itself, not on the approach areas. Shooters can arrive, execute targets in view of border officials, and disappear before anyone responds. The proximity to Lesotho, only meters away, offers immediate escape across an international boundary. Police are summoned. They arrive to find 2 bodies. Witnesses describe the white Isuzu bakkie. The shooting was targeted. The gunmen didn't fire randomly. They selected specific passengers from that taxi. This wasn't robbery. This was an execution. A swift response from Ladybrand police leads to the bakkie being intercepted on the R26 near Manyatseng. But when officers approach, 2 suspects flee into the darkness. The driver remains. Police search the vehicle. They find a 9mm firearm with ammunition, and the driver is immediately arrested. His name was Sean Gert Molloy, 30 years old. He appears in the Ladybrand Magistrates Court and is granted bail of only 8,000 rand. But the shooters, the men who actually pulled triggers and killed Moholi Mohapi and Raboni David Sefaka, they are gone. They fled across the border into Lesotho, where South African police have no jurisdiction. This is the pattern of cross-border crime that has plagued Ladybrand and other Free State border towns for years. Criminals operate in South Africa, they commit violence, then disappear into Lesotho, knowing that borders slow pursuit, that extradition is complicated, that many crimes go unpunished simply because perpetrators cross a line on a map. Lesotho sits just 18 kilometers from Ladybrand. The border is porous. People cross daily for work, for family, for trade. But that same porosity allows criminals to just vanish. For the families of Moholi Mohapi and Raboni David Sefaka, the border represented impunity. Their loved ones were executed in broad daylight at a border crossing. The shooters were identified, but they were in Lesotho, beyond immediate reach. Except this time, something different happened. The SAPS investigators did not give up. They identified the 2 suspects who fled. It's Teboho Tiu, 32, and Linyo Walatsa, 30. They traced them to Lesotho, and then began the meticulous legal process of extradition. International extradition isn't quick. It requires cooperation between law enforcement agencies in both countries. Legal frameworks that respect sovereignty while enabling justice. Months of paperwork, court processes in Lesotho, diplomatic coordination. In July 2024, 1 month after the murders, the suspects are apprehended in Lesotho. But apprehension isn't extradition. They sit in Lesotho custody while legal processes grind forward. Months pass, families wait, the case builds. Evidence is compiled, witness statements are recorded. The 9mm firearm recovered from the bakkie undergoes ballistic examination. And on January the 6th, 2025, 7 months after Moholi Mohapi and Raboni David Sefaka were shot dead, Teboho Tiu and Linyo Walatsa are extradited back to South Africa at the Maseru Bridge port of entry. That very same border crossing where they committed the murder. On January the 7th, 2025, both suspects appear in Ladybrand Magistrates Court. They are charged with 2 counts of murder and attempted murder. The case is postponed to January 13th for appointment of legal representation. The prosecutors will eventually reveal what investigators already know. This was targeted violence. Moholi Mohapi and Raboni David Sefaka weren't random victims. Someone wanted them dead. Someone sent shooters to that taxi drop-off point with instructions to kill specific passengers arriving from Johannesburg. The motive remains unclear in public reporting. Was it gang violence, death, personal vendetta? The investigation continues, but what's clear is that this was planned execution disguised as random border violence. The case marks the 3rd successful extradition of suspects linked to serious crimes under Free State Police investigations. It highlights the growing cooperation between South African and Lesotho authorities in combating cross-border crime. For years, the border represented impunity. Criminals knew that crossing into Lesotho meant safety, that South African police couldn't follow, that extradition was rare and slow. Families of victims watched killers disappear across bridges and never face consequences. But Teboho Tsiu and Lineo Walatsa learned something different. They learned that borders delay justice, but it doesn't prevent it. That international cooperation does exist. That fleeing to Lesotho, it buys time, but not your freedom. They sat in Lesotho custody for 7 months, thinking they had escaped. Then they were brought back in handcuffs to face the families of the men they killed, to answer for blood spilled at a border crossing they thought would shield them. The trial hasn't happened yet. These are allegations, not proven facts, but the extradition itself sends a message to everyone operating in the cross-border crime economy. Lesotho isn't a safe haven anymore. Moholi Bohome Mohape was 31. Rabone Sererubele Sefaka was 40. They stepped off a taxi from Johannesburg, expecting to cross into Lesotho for whatever business brought them there. Instead, they were executed in open view of border officials, their blood pooling on South African soil meters from the crossing. Their families waited 7 months for the men who killed them to face justice. Now they wait for trial, for evidence to be presented, for verdicts to be delivered. The white Isuzu bakkie has been impounded. The 9mm firearm is evidence. Sian Garmeloy, the driver, who was granted 8,000 rand in bail, awaits trial as an accessory. Teboho Tsiu and Lineo Walatsa sit in custody, no longer protected by the border they thought would save them. The Maseru Bridge port of entry still stands between Ladybrand and Lesotho. It's still a place where thousands cross daily for work, family, trade. The taxi drop-off point remains open, though the bloodstains are long washed away. Moholi Mohape and Rabone David Sefaka were gunned down in broad daylight. Their killers fled across the border, but 7 months later, extradition brought them back to face justice. If you found this story interesting, please subscribe to Brick and Blood for more South African stories that demand to be told. Please tell me in the comments which town we should cover next. I would love to hear from you. So thank you for listening, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.